Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. Our webinar today is on Unveiling Gender Disparity, Breaking the Barriers. We're looking at empowerment through awareness, and we'll try and uncover the impact of gender disparity within the workplace. Today, our facilitator and speaker is Thireshen Sannah. He's a Bachelor of Commerce Law degree student at Regent Business School. Thireshen has achieved his Management Development Program certificate and is currently pursuing his Bachelor of Commerce degree. His dedication is matched by his passion for the legal profession, and he intends to pursue an LLB degree upon completion of his BCom law degree. Thireshen's commitment to excellence extends beyond academics. He has earned his provincial colors KZN in debating, which is quite impressive, and this saw him secure a 6th place ranking in KwaZulu-Natal. It also saw him, gave him a commendable 10th place nationally in South Africa. His achievements in debate in the debating arena reflects his tenacity and strong communication skills. Thireshen's commitment to nurturing a culture of competence and positivity at Regent Business School has motivated him alongside his colleague Elijah Joel Munsami in undertaking the initiative to establish a debating team at Regent Business School. This platform serves to cultivate confidence and professionalism within the formal context of both the professional world and public speaking. Thireshen's guiding motto encapsulates his noble aspiration: I am committed to making a difference and aspire to bring about positive change. So we have this webinar on this platform, Thireshen Sannah. Over to you, Thireshen, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Nirmala, for that pleasant introduction. Good morning to everyone present. I hope that each and every one of you are doing well today. Well, firstly, before I contextualize this motion of RAM, I would like to place and record that everything said today on this platform, ladies and gentlemen, is in accordance to gender disparity. It is said with no biased context, ladies and gentlemen. This is a free zone. I want to advise each and every one of you that this is a free zone, that we all join hands in the pool of equality. You guys are permitted to ask questions, and I will answer them toward the end of this discussion. So when I was approached to actually do this webinar on gender disparity, the first thing that came to my mind was the 3 elements that actually links to gender disparity, and that being the DEI. So we need to understand what is this concept of DEI, right? So the concept of DEI basically is defined as D being diversity, E being equity and equality, and we're going to understand and break down what's the difference between equity and equality, and the I stands for inclusion, right? So diversity in a workplace is an important factor, because with different backgrounds come with different points of views, which leads to better ideas, better creative thinking, and a better society at large. From a business standpoint, different perspectives directly influences a product, how it's made, who it serves, how it functions, and so on. More perspectives make for a better product. People from different backgrounds with varying life experiences will be able to provide new perspectives and help redefine the substance of the motion. There is a level of innovation that diversity contributes to. Coleman said, people bring a unique framework to the job that enables them to approach problems differently and propose unique solutions. The next thing, or rather the next substantive matter that we have to look at is equity. In order to ensure equal circumstances for all individuals across an organization, equity requires that employers recognize barriers and advantages. This is the crucial difference between equity and equality. Equity takes into account the fact that not everybody is at the same starting level, explained Coleman. Take home ownership, for example. A bank can make a statement that a loan application process is equal and that they will not discriminate based on caste, creed, gender, socioeconomic status, and so forth. These are prohibited factors that hold some individual back from actually receiving that loan, ladies and gentlemen. These limitations are what define barriers, and give rise to advantages, ultimately leading to an inequitable process. The next factor that we're going to take into consideration is why does inclusion matter? While the work while the workplace does require professionalism and ethic, an inclusive culture should not bar individuals from being themselves. Each and every one of us are unique. Employers should not worry about, code switching or shielding part of their identity, Coleman said. They should walk through the door knowing that I am I and I am capable as an individual. Inclusion is what maintains diversity. Without it, employees will simply leave the organization. If a candidate walks in, for example, if a candidate walks into a workplace and the only woman or a BIPOC employee, they are going to question the employee's authenticity in accordance to that substance. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, with those three elements being said, notice, and substance, we need to further understand why is the DEI rather pivotal in the workplace, right? So the diversity, equality, and inclusion is rather pivotal in the workplace because it is vital in creating and maintaining a successful workplace, one founded on the principle that all people can thrive personally and professionally. Bringing people together from various backgrounds leads to more, better generated creative ideas. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the substantive matter of gender disparity holistically. And it is quite evident that in accordance to that substance, what we have derived is that we have lived in a hierarchy society in shadow of historic parallel during the 1500s and 2000s, but only in the name of law, not in the name of equality, actuality, and reality. And with those three words, today I will define that motion. It is indeed evident that the hierarchy substance has not dissolved within this motion of error. We see that women empowerment being a large on the spectrum in accordance as per the following statistical values that has been substance in light of the study on studyupon.org. 80% of male individuals are employed at an executive level, while 15% of female individuals are employed at casual level, and only 5% of those individuals who are female sit at an executive level. So if we had to look at this in terms of equality, or if we rather bring out a balance scale, we could see that this scale actually leads to a net benefit holistically, and it's totally unfair. So the solution that we can bring as a society, what can we do in order to combat this motion and plead to heed towards change? So we look at a term called the DSM. The DSM is defined as the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The DSM has released a study which illustrates the difference between male and female. Now, in this discussion today, we're only going to look at the rather pivotal differences and similarities, and that is the only differences that were derived is that male and female, one have different hormonal changes, the adolescence period is different, and the physical appearance of a male and female is different. What we have also derived in accordance to the similarity is that men and women are blessed with the same jug of academia. Ladies and gentlemen, what Tom can do, Mary can do. The other day, I read this quote, right? And it said that you are the artist to your own life. Don't ever give anyone else that paintbrush. And that is, I agree 100% to that, because no one can come up here and say, hey, because I'm a male or because I'm a female, I have, less intellectuality in my gene and I can't achieve something. No, each and every one of us are capable of achieving emotion. If we apply ourselves knowledgeably, we will achieve our objectivity within that realm. Right? We typically see gender disparity in workplaces. For an example, let me provide you, ladies and gentlemen, with a typical example. You see that Leta will employ Yasmin as a hairstylist, but not Sean. Why? Because Sean should be seen as someone who is an alpha male in society. Sean should be doing physical work. So how come Sean cannot actually apply for this job? Or better yet, we will see that Sean will not employ Joel as a manager and not Leta. Why? Because Joel has he has the stereotypical idea of being an alpha male in society, and therefore he should get a job. Now, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. This is only based on pure beliefs. This is no law. This is nothing to do with with ethical values or moral values. This is belief that society has created, and I think that we as the future are we going to find a remedy in our discussion today to apply it in the future, so we don't actually have this problem. So as I've said, you'll be noticing that throughout my discussion I will keep ask questions like what, who, when, how, and why. So the next question I'm going to ask myself is, what does this do in the workplace? So this creates an imbalanced system and casts a shadow upon diversification. What does this do now? This enables employees to become demotivated. And we know that when employees become demotivated, they become less productive. And when they become less productive, they do not give out the best results that is expected from them. And what happens then? Business falls, ladies and gentlemen. You're not able to have a successful business. And later on, throughout this discussion, I will provide you with my personal experience and with a company, right? And how they actually have come up with a solution that creates diversification in the workplace. So back to the DSM. The whole idea of me mentioning the DSM is because we should actually provide a remedy in accordance to the DSM. So as we all know that I'm a BCom law student, right? And in year one, we learned something called the judicial partiality. So the judicial partiality basically meant that a judge, before going and presiding over a specific case, had to sit and undergo an examination. Based on that judge's success rates, they will then be able to preside over a specific case. The reason for this examination is so that they could make sure that this judge has no biased past experiences that will influence their decision, and that they will make their decision with equality and something that is incredibly, or rather in the realms of justification. Right. So an example of what we could bring in is the DSM panel. We could get a panel, number one, a panel of expertise. These expertise as external parties could actually draw up a questionnaire, or rather an examination, and interview external parties. So what does this actually do? Number one, it creates employability. Number two, based on the success rate of that individual, they can be employed in the workplace, and their main and focal duty would be is to enforce one, diversification, and ensure equality is being practiced. Because ladies and gentlemen, we know that the judicial system is actually flawed. It's even though there are laws that are designed to protect us in terms of the Employment Equity Act and BCEA, but it's better to have someone in the workplace enforcing it all the time. And what will this actually achieve as a motion of rom? It would actually achieve a healthier and much more productive environment, where everyone would actually go out there and give off the best of the best, and they will achieve the solution, and they will achieve the results that they want to achieve, thereby breaking the barriers of gender disparity. I just like to share my personal experience, right? So at the end of my second semester last year, I had a job at Hush, and I actually worked in the service department. And it was such a happy-go-lucky environment. Hush, well, what Mr. and Mrs. Hush had done was they introduced something called the morning meetings, right? And the start of every day, we had those morning meetings. Now, irrespective of your caste, creed, gender, religion, sexuality, you had to participate in that, because that created diversification in the workplace. It was so awesome. Each and every person had the ability to do something or say something. For example, we had people who would do an affirmation, people who would do a joke, someone will come up and do a prayer, someone will do motivation. And it's not just happening, physically. Throughout the entire South Africa, all Hirsch branches will join on that Zoom meeting, and everyone will have to participate on that. And it was such a good environment. That is why I think, ladies and gentlemen, Hirsch is one of the most, successful stores, because of the system that they have integrated within a society like this, right? So moving on to my next contextual, and that is agree to a no gender pay gap. Now, this is something that is very controversial, but would when anything is controversial, we always find our loophole, we always find a remedy. So I'm sure that each and every one of us are familiarized with what is the Poppy Act, right? And if you're not, the Poppy Act is basically an act that aims to protect the information and privacy of the South African civilians, right? But what I think that is yes, we could prioritize or we should prioritize people's illness, people's family problems at home as an executive body. If you want to disclose that to your executive, that is something that is to be disclosed. But when you're actually disclosing that, I don't think salaries should be undisclosed, because I think that by making salaries transparent, we will create a better working environment. And let me tell you why. If you have two employees, employee A and employee B, right? And employee A is getting paid 30,000 and employee B is getting paid 31,000. Employee B is not going to do the work that employee A does, and employee A is not going to do the work that employee B does, despite them being on the same level and having the same duty. They would say, like, you know what, he is earning more than me, so why must I go about and do his job or go the extra mile when he is earning more? And in the workplace, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, Hirsch was a place that was full of team players. You went there and you never saw animosity amongst the staff. And it's the same practice that happens in every workplace. If there's an animosity, there's no productivity. So what I'm saying is that if salaries are transparent, each and every individual will know, I am earning this money, this is my job, I will perform to the best of my ability, rather than undermining themselves, because that's typically what happens. That is what human nature is all about, right, ladies and gentlemen? So the one realm of notion would be is making salaries transparent. And the next thing we look at, or rather the next factor, is promotions should be done on merit. So obviously in some places promotions are done in a way where the employer knows who they're actually going to employ. So what I think that is important is the fact that when you're being promoted, you need to be promoted based on the fact that you have achieved something in the workplace, number one. Number two, you have been there for a certain period of time. And number three, you are making changes within the workplace that impacts the whole entire workplace, thereby leading to a positive contribution in society. And what we generally do now is, in accordance to a remedy, is subsidize this motion. So for every two males promoted, two females should be promoted, so that we have the sense of equality. A male and a female is on this borderline. We have the equality. Therefore, it leads to a positive working force, ladies and gentlemen. The next factor that we look at is policy. So yes, as I've said before in my introduction, that a policy is basically sorry, I haven't spoken about a policy, but as I've mentioned before, that there have been laws that are designed to protect the citizens of South Africa. However, if we institute a policy within the workplace that we are, that we have associated ourselves with, we will achieve a greater working force. And I'll tell you how and why, right? If we have an interview, right, we should have a policy of there to be four people who interview one candidate. Every one of those four individuals should be two males, two females, and they should constitute of different racial groups. Because if you have, for an example, right, four male individuals interviewing one female and one male, the decision that the male is going to make, ladies and gentlemen, the four employers, is going to be based on the male, because they are going to automatically think that, hey, you know what, we cannot employ this female because in the next 3 years she might be for pregnant, and based on that it will increase cost to company. Therefore, let's employ the male, even though the female is much more qualified. So that's why I have said that we should create a policy for four different racial groups, and and two males and two females to participate in that interview. So you have an equal decision that is rendered towards that motion, so that the person who is applying for the job spends so much of time actually looking for the job and spends so much of fuel coming, knowing the fact that they have been rendered the proper decision, that the decision was based on their actuality, merit. The next notion that we have to look at is having a rather hosting a campaign between males and females. So this notion, we look at it in a broad spectrum, right? While males and females can actually host a campaign together, they will make a very enormous contribution, because remember, in this realm, they would actually be, number one, showing teamwork, sharing ideas. The male intellectuality will mix with the female intellectuality, and then they will, sort of combine that, and that could be one of the most powerful forces out there in the business workplace. That is why I think that it is rather pivotal that we enforce that within the workplace. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to my conclusion on this motion of gender disparity. And in conclusion, what I would like to actually put out there is that gender disparity, ladies and gentlemen, please understand me, it is only societal. In no book it is written that male and females are, different, and male should be stereotyped and female should be stereotyped. Each and every one of us, as I've said before, and belong to the same jug of academia. Each and every one of us are expected, or each and every one of us can expect ourselves, when we do self-reflection, to achieve what we want to in life. All we got to do is have the right mindset. Each and every one of us belong to only one race, ladies and gentlemen, and that is the human race. Each and every one of us are extremely capable. So let's work together and bring upon change. Hashtag Regent Business School. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this enlightening webinar, Thireshen. We will be taking questions. So if anyone, any of our participants, attendees here would like to ask questions, you're welcome to put them on the chat, and we'll try to answer that to the best of our ability. Gender disparities, it is a pressing concern globally, not just in South Africa. And every country has different issues that relate to gender disparity. So it's not a one-size-fits-all issue, but it is relevant and it is happening around the world. So I think we need to look at our historical, look at it from an historical perspective as well. What's been happening in the past, and how we can look at changing this in going forward. In terms of the issues that we need to look at as well, include like things like economic disparities, and as Thireshen mentioned, the huge gender wage gap, which is a reality, currently in the workplace. We're looking at skills, education, and skills development. Political representation, we're looking at gender-based violence issues, and other social factors, and some of these are cultural and practices and norms that people are faced with. And Shongwe, you say, but religiously, gender disparity is supported by scripture, the male being superior to a female, though many scriptures in the Bible supporting that patriarch as such. Whilst many cultures believe and follow the patriarch system, I think the issue here is to just bring about, and we're not getting into religion in this webinar, but to bring about, see how we can bring about, or look at bringing about change within the economic sector for women. All right. And to to substantiate this, the country has come up with some legal policy and frameworks, for South Africa to address gender disparities. And these lay a foundation to implement, that in implementing gaps and. But however, this still remains a challenge within the workplace. Policies and procedures are available, but I think putting them into place, has become a challenge here. Rasukot, why must we live in the past while we are in the present? There is this drama televised on SABC 1 weekly. It happens that the man becomes jealous of the wife being successful. What lesson and advocacy can be employed in making sure the upbringing of future generations are able to treat each other equal? Thireshen, you want to add to that? Or?
Yes, I do actually want to add to that, Nirmala. I think that, when we look at something equity, in something in the realms of equity, we have to look at how we're going to redress that, right? And I think what television programs is designed for is actually basically influencing people's mindset into thinking in a certain manner. So in the lines that we should be thinking is, that equality is something that we all want to achieve because every one of us want to be happy and successful. So upon us achieving that equality of a notion, each and every one of us will have an equal pay, and we'll be paid according to our title and not according to our gender, and we'll also be paid according to our qualification. I mean, no one wants to go out there and put 7 years in studying and then get paid low salary in contrast to someone who is being paid studying for 5 years and getting paid a higher salary. So I hope that answers your question. I'm not sure I pronounce your name.
Mahil. I think, and further to that as well, what is televised, around globally and in our country as well, a lot of it reflects the realities that are experienced within the different cultures in our country. And I think in terms of looking at that as well, I think we need to look at what's happening in our own homes and how we can look at changing these cultural practices within our own environments. I think, like the saying goes, charity begins at home. A lot of what we need to do, we need to practice within our own homes, within our own communities, and within ourselves as well, in order to bring about the change. It starts with us. What are we doing within our homes to instill some change and values that represent gender equality within our communities? Cabello asks, what strategies have been successful in breaking down barriers and promoting gender equality in workplaces and educational institutions? Thireshen, you have anything on that? Or
Yes, I do. So whilst there haven't been strategies that has been implemented as yet, or whilst there have been strategies being implemented as yet, but are not rendered as successful, I think that throughout my discussion, speaking, I provided this panel with numerous strategies as to what can be done, and I think that the only people who could actually do it or is capable of doing it is ourselves. And that's the sole purpose of we are being the future of this country, and we are the future, being the fact that we are now during our academia period growing up, we could make this difference and achieve something that hasn't been achievable throughout the past years.
Thanks for that, Thireshen. I think what some companies as well, and these are not in every institution or organization, some companies are endeavoring to make that change. They do have policies in place. Their work culture allows for women empowerment. There's also non-empowerment initiatives within various NGOs that are working together to empower women. They're looking at education, they're looking at skills building and advocating for women's rights. So these initiatives, they spotlight some of the successes that are happening around us. But I think in that sense, from an NGO point of view, I think if we can bring some of that into the workplace as well, and however, it must be sustainable. A lot of companies look at making changes, but are these changes sustainable? Are they continuing with certain programs in terms of empowering their staff? And not just women as well. There's gender disparities when it comes to men as well. So I think when we're looking at gender disparity, it's not just in favor of women. We're looking at what are the inequalities that are faced by men as well within society. And when it comes to gender-based violence as well, and those are one of the major issues that is happening. It's much talked about in terms of female gender violence, but when it comes to male gender violence, it's not as people are not informed of issues of that unless somebody decides, okay, they want to speak out about this. So there is a lot of challenges that are, society is facing. We need to look at addressing these challenges and see how we can overcome some of these challenges that we are faced with. Jeremiah, on gender equality, what really can be done when the job is physically demanding in such a long way that it's more challenging for women to tackle that position? What can be done to give women a fair chance in this regard? And I think, Jeremiah, what you're looking at are industries where physical labor is required. In certain industries where this physical labor is required, I think a lot of training is required in those instances. I think also when it comes to specific areas of or industries that you're looking at and where you're looking at physical labor as well, that is a personal choice as well. A woman will decide, okay, I can do this. She's willing to work hard, she's willing to do physical labor and achieve something within that field. And there's many women within, these industries where it requires physical labor. But I think in terms of looking at giving them a fair chance with this regard as well, it's up to the organizations that they work for the companies that they work for, to create a culture that empowers women to be able to fulfill those roles that they are in. Nonchalant, hi everyone, thank you for this talk. This is very important to discuss. My question is, what can you do as a woman to increase your chances of getting employed without being taken advantage of? I'm a qualified educator, however, it is hard getting employment without a male trying to be unprofessional or wanting me as a woman to trade myself for a position for which I am already qualified for. These are some of the realities that we are faced with, discrimination, harassment, gender-based violence that a lot of women are facing when it comes to achieving, their career goals or getting into a position that they are qualified for. They have the work experience, they have the qualifications. However, people in higher positions tend to take advantage of that and, behave untowards towards these candidates. I think it's very relevant question, whilst this is currently being done. It's in news almost every day. You would see articles about this. I think it's up to the organization, to filter these people within the senior roles in organizations, and these need to be rooted out in organizations so that there's fair and unbiased employment or recruitment of candidates. It shouldn't be based on what a man in a senior position can get from this woman. it should be based on the skills they bring, on the experience that they're bringing, and what changes can be made for the benefit of the organization. I think it can be difficult, and based on the actual positions people are placed in organizations, it can be difficult in some organizations to get rid of people who take advantage of candidates. But this should be, and this should companies should look at changing the culture as well, in looking at fair employment activities within their organizations. Adila, why is it important to take gender concerns into account in program design and implementation? How big of an impact does it have on an organization's success? Thireshen, would you like to contribute to that?
Yes, I'd like to contribute in that, Nirmala. So, since the inception of my discussion, I did make mention about the study on studyupon.org. That was actually statistical values indicated that 80% of men are employed at executive value, 15% of women are employed at casual value, and 5% only of that females sits at an executive value. While there being 80% of individuals who are males that are sitting on an executive value, I think that it's also rather paramount and pivotal for us to encourage diversification, because if we have male and females on that value, on this, which equal to the same value, sitting on the same level, then we'll obviously encourage better creative thinking, better decision making, because you have two different perspectives of something and not just one generalized perspective. To answer your question about how big of an impact does it have on organization success, look at Hush for an example. I told you that I used to work at Hush in the sales and service team, and look at them, how successful they been, in terms of them encouraging diversification every morning in shadow of the morning meetings. That's why they are able to achieve such good results every day, and they're able to make so much of sales, because there's no animosity among staff, and each and every one of them live in a healthy, or rather work in a healthy, productive, and objectified environment.
Okay, and to add to that as well, I think it's crucial that organizations include gender issues into their program and design. In terms of women economic empowerment as well, look at what the organization can do to change the norms that are currently being people are faced with within the workplace. Look at creating or building women's leadership skills within the organization. Look at promoting more women within the, provide mentoring for people within these organizations. Just having, a program and design without implementing it, serves no purpose to an organization. So when they design a program to include gender diversity within an organization, these must be implemented, and these must be sustainable as well for the organization. If it's not, then it serves no purpose to the aim of that design. Cabello, in context of gender disparity, how does the LGBTQI plus community experience unique challenges and barriers, and what strategies can be employed to ensure inclusivity and equality for all gender identities and sexual orientations? Cabello, that's a very important question, and I think it's very relevant in the now, in terms of workplace and how this is managed. But it is also people's personal choices that they make in terms of, and this is not for, I'm not talking about the LGBTQ community. I'm talking about organizations, their cultures, and their beliefs as well. If you are an entrepreneur and you decide, okay, this is what I want for my organization. I am, that is what you would choose, if you're owning a private or entity. But I think in terms of this issue, policy, governing policies, workplace policies, and need to change to accommodate a diverse community as well. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not just about creating this design and plans, that you could programs that you can include in your organization. It's about implementing these plans as well. But I think when it comes to the LGBTQI plus community, we need to look at how government policy is working, in accommodating this community, and is this being, implemented within organizations? If not, what is being done to remedy that? It just like with gender disparity, all these issues need to be addressed, and they need to be sustainable. They need to be implemented within organizations. Organizations need to look at fair, equitable employment. And how are they doing this? How is government intervening with regards to these policies as well, in terms of private organizations? Because labor law, if it accommodates specific communities or in terms of diversity, etc., are they monitoring what's being done within the private sector, for example? Does it require more monitoring to say, okay, this needs to be done? We need to look at a more diverse and equitable solution in terms of employment for our, to alleviate gender disparity within our organizations. All right. Thireshen, did you want to add to that?
I did want to add to that. I do want to add to that. I think that right now, if you look at the status quo, when you go into a workplace, right, the only identifications that they do have is male and female. So whether if you respectively choose to be part of the LGBTQI community and you self-identify as a different gender, whether you identify as a gender currently, if we look at status quo right now, you are going to still be afforded the same rights. If they only see you as a male and female. So if you are, for example, a male who is a male who is a gay male, and you won't be afforded the rights to as the same rights as a female. Yeah, you would still have that substance of ram that you're a male and you'll be afforded that right. So to answer Catello's question, I think that yes, they could be policies that are also introduced within the workplace in order to counterfeit that, so we can achieve equality on a large spectrum.
Okay, Kabela, I hope that answers your question. I think when it comes to employment as well, it's a personal choice. And in terms of as a recruiter, if I decide, okay, this person looks gay kind of thing, and I don't want them working in this company. And I decide, okay, I'm not going to take that candidate on, as a recruiter, we need to look at how we can be unbiased in our recruitment processes as well. So I think if we need to put that aside when recruiting. We need to look at people's qualifications, people's skills, and what they're bringing to the table. Can they do the job that is required of them? But policy needs to be put in place. Companies need to come together and say, okay, this is what we need to do. And as a country as a whole as well, within more organizations, various organizations or industries. Roseko, I think walking the talk has been realized. It is time of action in assuring that male and female counterparts are treated equal. SA is one of the most policy-driven, but to implement it is a nightmare. Symposiums need to be activated by men in challenging the disparities. That is so true, Roseko. I think we have policies in place. Implementation, yes, it's a challenge. And here again, as I mentioned, government needs to step in and say, okay, these are the policies, this needs to be adhered to as well. And if that's not being done, it's going to continue, in the same fashion, and we're still going to have this inequality amongst genders. Yeah, so that's basically it. We need to look at what we can do, and like I said, empowerment initiatives do help, but to a certain extent. Raseko, in general, all racial and ethnic groups in South Africa have long-standing beliefs concerning gender roles, and most are based on the premise that women are less deserving of power than men. Most African traditional social organizations are male-centered and male dominance. That's very true, and I think it's the various cultures have different understanding of patriarchy is common amongst African culture in South Africa. So I think, yeah, again, you need to look at changing this, but from a domestic, side of things, from a personal and domestic issue, and then within your communities. You need to start with yourself, you need to start within your families, move on into your communities, and then look at things from an holistic perspective. How are you going to change the narrative with regards to gender equality within your cultures and your environments and communities? Okay, I think in terms of looking at future, I think it requires a multi-pronged strategies, short-term interventions, long-term interventions, your short-term focusing on strengthening implementation, policy and implementation of existing laws, providing comprehensive or holistic support to gender-based violence survivors, promoting participation in, promoting women's participation in decision-making within organizations, within our homes as well. It starts with us, and some of our long-term goals, we need to dismantle, the entrenched norms that from the past that we're still bringing into the current and taking into the future as well. We need to reform education and challenge these stereotypes that are happening. We need to look at promoting women's economic empowerment. But like I said, as much as I'm saying we need to promote women's economic empowerment, there are challenges faced by men as well. So we need to look at it, from an holistic point of view. What are the challenges faced by men? What are the challenges faced by women in the workplace? And how can we create, an environment that's conducive, that's equal, and that's sustainable for the various diverse genders that we have within our communities. Shuma, I think having more fatigue conversations will be will be a start to having larger conversations on the issue. That's true as well. We tend not to talk about these issues. It comes across, on International Women's Day or Women's Day in South Africa. It's a big thing during the month, and then it's forgotten for the rest of the year. Companies, organizations, people make a big thing about Women's Day, and then for the rest of the year it's forgotten. This needs to be continuous. There needs to be continuous talks about it. We need to advocate, look at how we can advocate for implementation of policies that create these equal rights within the workplace. Jeremiah, how can we change this notion in our communities that men are favorable targets of employability? The notion that women are naturally caretakers of home and basically housewives, and men are there to naturally work and provide for the family, whilst women, though qualities, stay at looking after children, do the core duties of taking the house. How in our present communities can we change this norm? This has been the narrative of the past, and it's, where women stayed at home, they took care of the kids, the men went to work and earned an income. And things have changed a lot since. People have women have started empowering themselves. They started educating themselves. They started getting into the workplace, and most households, both male and female, are working. And it's required in our economic climate as well, to avoid struggling financially. Both the male and the female needs to be working in an household, so I think it's, again, Jeremiah, you need to talk about it at that level, but also not just talk about it. How can we empower women to, and not just to find work somewhere, to empower them themselves, to start their own business, to become entrepreneurs. And there's so many female entrepreneurs that are really, really successful out there. How do we promote this? We need to be able to, and this is from family point of view, individual and family points of view as well. You need to decide, okay, this is what my own needs. How do I encourage, my wife or my partner to, get some education, or how do I enable her to do this? How do I look at empowering, because we need to work on this together as well. You need to communicate, your needs in terms of what's happening within your household as well, and look at empowering females, look at empowering your children as well. That when they grow up, they need to study, they need to educate themselves, they need to gain skills, they need to be either become entrepreneurs or get into the workplace. We need to be able to tell them, it's not, the physical labor industry is not just for men. Women can be in those industries as well. Engineering, sciences, a lot of women tend to shy away from those. We need to encourage our children to be able to say, okay, you know what, you are really good at this, or motivate them in terms of what they want to do as well. In looking at a diverse industry, and a lot of these are more on the sciences, and very industry related workplaces. We have a few minutes left. Does anyone have any comments or anything that they'd like to say before we close off? through helping to reduce chronic hunger, which will lead to longer lasting peace and benefits entire families and empowers all those who face discrimination. I think, Reseko, what you're trying to say there is we need to look at, empowering our communities. We need to look at empowering and educating more of our women as well, and we need to look at how we can get them into the workplace, different industries, becoming entrepreneurs. And I think we need to look at economic stability as well within our families, within our environments, within our communities. And you're looking at chronic hunger as well. I'm assuming you're talking about the economic state of our people, poverty, etc. And how we can look at building on those, and helping our communities. This was very informative, insightful, and engaging session, Kabelo. Thank you, Kabelo. I think from my side to close, I think gender disparities in South Africa are complex. It's deeply rooted in the past and it's multifaceted. We need to acknowledge these changes, these challenges, and I think we need to start by making meaningful change, take the first steps into making meaningful change. I think a lot of people talk about addressing historical legacies and, looking at inclusive policies and challenging the norms, that are harmful. A lot of these are in place. A lot of these policies have been changed. A lot of policies have become more inclusive, whether it's schooling or whether it's in the workplace. But is it being implemented as it should be? And is it being sustainable? Are organizations, sustaining these policies, ensuring that they are adhered to, etc., within the workplace? I think this issue, it demands collective effort, from both individuals, families, communities, and institutions. We need to break down barriers, ensure a society where every individual, regardless of their gender, are able to thrive. Sharon, thank you so much for this. Was informative and an important conversation. I hope for a mindset change and a better future for all. Thank you so much, Sharon. Can we have more of these gender awareness platforms more often? Yes, Jeremiah, we will be looking into this and see how we can have more conversations and maybe get more students, more alumni involved in these conversations as well. Maybe bring about their experiences and create something that's that can look at making changes as well, can look at advocating for change as well. Thireshen, you have any final words?
No, I'm all good. I've said everything that I actually thought about.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Thireshen, for participating in this webinar. It's much appreciated. And Thireshen is a second-year student, and we encourage this as well. And we would encourage our students as well to get involved in these kind of webinars, in these workshops, in these debates as well. So keep a lookout. I will be sending out emails. I will be encouraging you to get involved, to participate as well. We want to build our students. We want them to become more confident individuals in the personal lives and within the workplace as well. And precisely informative, wonder how such a topic could form part of MBA program, because most corporate seniors are propagators of gender disparities. I think you could speak to within the academic, eds and see how we could, how they would look at, these topics as well. Flora, thank you so much for the informative information. You're also welcome. I think we will try and have more conversations like this in future, but also I would encourage participation from everyone, that would like to participate in this. We do have an evaluation that will be sent to you after the webinar. So if you are interested in something like this as well, and you want to participate, you can just include your information there, and I'll be in contact with you for something like this. All right. And thank you so much once again, Thireshen.
No problem.
All right. Okay, so we are done for time, but thank you all for attending. Please complete the survey, the evaluation that will come through, and include, what thoughts you have on this. And if you want to be involved as well, please provide your details, and I will be in contact with you. Alternatively, you can send me an email on employability@regent.ac.za. I'm just going to put my email address there. And you can be in touch with me here at Regent. All right, I'm based in the Durban office. If you need to call me, or you can always just send me an email, and I will respond to you. I'm also on Regent Connect. So if you're not on Regent Connect, join Regent Connect. I'm active there. I respond to students and alumni on that platform as well. So that would, that is another option for you. Our upcoming webinar is on the 6th of September, Elevate and Innovate. This is future-proofing your personal brand in a digital world. So I'm hoping to see you there on the 6th of September. Thank you all once again, and take care.